Hey everyone, Ben here. Ever wonder what really goes down behind the scenes at your favorite big box store? Like beyond the giant teddy bears and the free samples? Today I'm going to tell you a story about a day at Costco that started like any other, but ended with something so unbelievable, it still gives me goosebumps. This isn't just about customer service. This is about humanity. It's about standing up for what's right. And it's about a moment that proved, even in the busiest, most chaotic places, kindness can still win. So grab a Kirkland hot dog, settle in, because you're not going to believe what happened. This is the kind of story that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about shopping. And maybe, just maybe, it'll make you look at your local cashier a little differently next time. Stick around, because this one's a doozy. It was a Tuesday, not just any Tuesday, but a pre-holiday Tuesday. You know the kind. The air was thick with the scent of rotisserie chicken and desperation. Every aisle was a battlefield, every shopping cart a weapon, and every cashier a hero on the front lines. I've been at Costco for 8 years now. 8 years. That's a lot of bulk buys, a lot of membership card scans, and a whole lot of interesting customer interactions. I've seen it all. From the lady who tried to return a half-eaten cake because it didn't taste right to the guy who brought in a mattress from 2005 claiming it had a manufacturing defect. Seriously, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened that afternoon. I was working the floor, doing my usual rounds, helping folks find the extra large jar of pickles, pointing out where the organic quinoa was hiding, and generally trying to keep the peace. It was about 3 p.m. The after-school rush was just starting to blend with the pre-dinner crowd. The lines were long, and I mean long, like wrapping around the aisle, stretching past the freezer section long. People were getting antsy, fidgeting with their phones, sighing dramatically. Some even started doing those weird little dances people do when they think no one's watching. Bless their hearts. My attention was drawn to checkout lane 7. From where I was, near the towering display of paper towels, I could hear it. Not just the usual hum of the store, but a distinct rising tone. The kind of tone that usually means trouble. It was a woman's voice, loud, sharp, and getting louder. I started making my way over, weaving through carts piled high with everything from flat-screen TVs to industrial-sized bags of dog food. As I got closer, the words became clearer. This is absolutely ridiculous. I've been waiting here for 20 minutes. Do you know who I am? Ah, the classic trifecta. I knew exactly what kind of situation I was walking into. A Karen. Full-blown, 5-alarm Karen. And she was aimed squarely at Maria. Maria was one of our best cashiers. She'd been with us for years, always had a smile, always patient, even when dealing with the most demanding customers. She was a pro, but even pros have their limits. And this Karen was pushing them. I could see Maria's shoulders were a little slumped. Her usual bright smile was gone, replaced by a tight, strained expression. She was trying to de-escalate. Ma'am, I apologize for the wait. We're doing our best to get everyone through as quickly as possible. Karen, however, was not interested in apologies. Your best isn't good enough, she shrieked, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. This is unacceptable. I have places to be, important places. She gestured wildly at her cart, which contained, among other things, a single bag of organic kale and a bottle of artisanal kombucha. Important indeed. The line behind her was growing restless. People were exchanging glances. Some were shaking their heads. A few brave souls even mumbled under their breath. But no one was saying anything out loud. Not yet. I was almost there. Just a few more carts to navigate. I was ready to step in, to offer the usual corporate speak apology, to try and smooth things over. But then Karen did something that made my blood boil. She leaned over the conveyor belt right into Maria's face. "You know," she sneered, her voice dripping with condescension, "if you can't handle a simple checkout line, maybe you're in the wrong job." That was it. That was the line. Maria, who had been nothing but polite and professional, flinched. Her eyes, usually so warm, clouded over. It was a small thing, a tiny reaction, but it hit me hard. This wasn't just about a long line anymore. This was about disrespect, about someone trying to tear down another person just because they felt entitled, and I wasn't going to stand for it. Before I could even open my mouth, a voice cut through the tension. A calm, clear voice. "Excuse me." Everyone turned. It was a man from the line, about 3 people back from Karen. He was tall, with a kind face and a baseball cap pulled low. He had a cart full of what looked like camping gear. "Did I just hear you tell that young lady she's in the wrong job?" he asked, his voice even, but with an edge. Karen spun around, her face a mask of indignation. "This doesn't concern you," she snapped. "Actually," the man replied, taking a step forward, "it does, because she's doing her job, and she's doing it well. And you, ma'am, are being incredibly rude." A ripple went through the line. Gasps, whispers. Karen's jaw dropped. She was clearly not used to being challenged. "How dare you?" she sputtered. "I'm a paying customer. I have every right to complain." "Complain, yes," the man said, his voice still calm, but now with a hint of steel. "Be abusive? No. There's a difference, and you just crossed it." Maria looked up, her eyes wide. She seemed surprised, almost shocked that someone was speaking up for her. And then something amazing happened. Another voice chimed in from further back in the line. "He's right." It was an older woman pushing a cart overflowing with groceries. "Leave her alone. She's doing her best." And then another and another. It started as a murmur, then a chorus. "Yeah, cut her some slack. We're all waiting. Go home, Karen." Okay, maybe not that last one, but you get the idea. The entire line, it felt like, erupted in support of Maria. It was incredible. Karen, who had been so loud and aggressive just moments before, suddenly looked small. Her face went from red with anger to pale with embarrassment. She stammered something, grabbed her kale and kombucha, and practically ran out of the store. The silence that followed was almost deafening. Then a cheer went up. A genuine, heartfelt cheer from everyone in line. Maria, bless her heart, had tears in her eyes. She looked at the man in the baseball cap, then at the older woman, then at the rest of the line. She just kept saying, "Thank you. Thank you so much." I finally made it to the front of the line. "Maria, are you okay?" I asked, putting a hand on her shoulder. She nodded, still a little shaky. "I'm okay, Ben. I can't believe it." I looked at the man in the baseball cap. "Sir, thank you. That was amazing." He just shrugged, a small smile on his face. Someone had to say something. She didn't deserve that. And that's when the really unbelievable part happened. The man in the baseball cap, whose name I later learned was Dave, reached into his cart. He pulled out a massive, beautifully packaged box. It was the new 85-inch Ultra HD curved screen TV, the one that costs more than my car. "Maria," he said, holding it up, "I want to buy this for you." Maria's jaw dropped. Mine too. "What? No, sir, you can't," she stammered. "Yes, I can," Dave replied, his smile widening. "Consider it a thank you for putting up with Well, you know. He gestured vaguely in the direction Karen had disappeared. But before Maria could protest further, the older woman from the line stepped forward. "Wait a minute," she said. "That's a bit much for one person, isn't it?" I thought she was going to object, to say it was too extravagant, but then she pulled out her wallet. "How much is it?" she asked Dave. He told her the price. It was a lot. She counted out some bills. "Here," she said, handing them to Maria. "This is for your share." And then, one by one, people from the line started doing the same. It was like a silent agreement had passed through the crowd. Someone offered $20, another $50. A young couple, who looked like they were barely out of college, pooled their cash and added $100. People were pulling out their wallets, their purses, even digging into their pockets for loose change. They weren't just contributing, they were insisting. "No, really, Maria," one guy said, pushing a crisp 20 into her hand. "You deserve it." We all saw what happened. Maria was overwhelmed. She was trying to refuse to say it was too much, but the sheer force of their generosity was too powerful. Dave, the man who started it all, just stood there, beaming. He was like the conductor of this impromptu orchestra of kindness. Within minutes, Maria had a stack of cash in her hands, enough easily to cover the entire cost of that massive TV, and then some. It wasn't just about the money, though. It was about the gesture, the collective act of solidarity, the way a group of strangers who had been annoyed and impatient just moments before came together to support someone who was being unfairly treated. It was a beautiful thing to witness. Maria, still teary-eyed, finally accepted the gift. She thanked each person individually, her voice thick with emotion, and then she did something else that just solidified her as the amazing person she is. She looked at the pile of cash, and then she looked at me. "Ben," she said, her voice a little shaky, "I can't take all of this. This is too much. We should donate some of it." My jaw dropped again. Even after everything, her first thought was to give back. That's Maria for you. We ended up taking a portion of the money and donating it to a local food bank in the name of the Costco Lane 7 Heroes. Maria kept enough to buy the TV, of course, and a little extra for herself. She deserved every penny. That day I saw the worst of people and the absolute best. I saw how quickly anger and entitlement can spread, but I also saw how much more powerful kindness and empathy can be. It was a reminder that even in the most mundane places, like a busy Costco checkout line, extraordinary things can happen. And that sometimes all it takes is one person to speak up, to spark a chain reaction of generosity. So, what do you think? Have you ever witnessed something like this? A moment where strangers came together to do something truly amazing? Or maybe you've been the one to speak up, to defend someone who couldn't defend themselves? Let me know in the comments below. And next time you're at Costco or any store, take a moment, look at the people around you, look at the staff. You never know when you might be part of an unforgettable moment or when you might be the one to start it. Stay kind out there, folks. It makes all the difference. Let me tell you a bit more about Maria. Maria wasn't just any cashier. She was the kind of person who remembered your kids' names, even if you only came in once a month. She'd ask about your dog or that new car you mentioned buying last time. She had this infectious laugh that could cut through the din of the busiest Saturday afternoon. And her smile, it was genuine, not the forced customer service smile you see so often. Maria's smile reached her eyes, crinkling them at the corners. She was a single mom, working 2 jobs to put her daughter through college. She took pride in her work, even though it was often thankless. She treated every customer with respect, no matter how they treated her. That's why seeing her flinch, seeing that light dim in her eyes, hit me so hard. It wasn't just a cashier being yelled at, it was Maria, and she deserved so much better. Now, about this Karen. She was a textbook example. Mid-50s, perfectly coiffed blonde bob, designer sunglasses perched on her head, even indoors. She wore a tracksuit that probably cost more than my rent, and she had that air about her. The air of someone who believed the world owed her something, that every inconvenience was a personal affront. She'd been huffing and puffing from the moment she joined the line. I'd seen her earlier, actually, trying to cut in line at the sample station for the artisanal cheese. She'd been politely but firmly told to go to the back, so she was already simmering, and Maria, unfortunately, became the target of that simmering rage. The line itself was a microcosm of humanity. There was the young couple, probably just moved into their first apartment, their cart filled with ramen and cheap wine. There was the elderly gentleman, meticulously counting out his coupons. There was a harried-looking dad, trying to wrangle 3 small children and a giant box of diapers. And then there was Dave. Dave, the man in the baseball cap. He was a quiet guy. I'd seen him around the store before. Always polite, always efficient. He usually bought a lot of outdoor gear, camping stuff, fishing rods. He had that calm, steady presence about him, the kind of guy you'd want next to you in a crisis. Little did I know he was about to prove that. The tension in the air was palpable. It was like a storm brewing. Every time Karen's voice rose, you could feel the collective cringe from the people in line. They were uncomfortable. They wanted it to stop, but no one wanted to be the one to say something. It's a common human reaction, isn't it, to avoid confrontation, to hope someone else will step in. And usually that's what happens. Someone from management like me would come over, offer a placating word, maybe a gift card, and usher the problem customer away. But this time, it was different. This time, it wasn't management. It was Dave. When he spoke, it was like a record scratch. Everyone froze. Karen, mid-rant, actually paused. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. It had authority. And the way he just calmly, directly called her out, it was masterful. He didn't yell. He didn't insult. He just stated the facts. And that, I think, is what disarmed her. She was expecting a fight, a shouting match. She wasn't expecting quiet, reasoned defiance. And then the ripple effect. That's the part that still gives me chills. It started with the older woman, Mrs. Henderson. She was a regular, always bought the same brand of coffee and a giant bag of frozen shrimp. Sweetest lady you'd ever meet, but she had a backbone of steel. When she spoke up, it was like a dam broke. Suddenly, everyone found their voice. It wasn't just a few people. It was the young couple, the harried dad, the elderly gentleman. Even the teenagers who looked glued to their phones started nodding and murmuring in agreement. It was a wave of collective indignation, washing over Karen and leaving her exposed. Her face, I swear, went through about 5 shades of red before settling on a sickly white. She looked around, bewildered, like she couldn't comprehend why these people, these strangers, were suddenly united against her. And then she bolted, just like that, grabbed her sad little bag of kale and her pretentious kombucha, and scurried out of the store like a cockroach when the lights come on. Good riddance. The cheer that followed was something else. It wasn't a loud, boisterous cheer. It was more of a collective sigh of relief, mixed with a burst of genuine appreciation. It was the sound of people who had been holding their breath, finally exhaling. And it was all for Maria, Maria, who was now openly weeping. Not sad tears, though. These were tears of relief, of gratitude, of pure, unadulterated shock. She kept wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to compose herself, but the emotions were just too strong. I walked up to her, and she just looked at me, her eyes shining. Ben, she whispered, her voice cracking. I I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Maria, I told her, my own throat a little tight. They said it all for you. And then the moment. The moment that truly cemented this day in my memory. Dave, the quiet hero in the baseball cap, stepped forward. He had this calm, almost serene look on his face. He wasn't grandstanding. He wasn't looking for applause. He was just doing what he felt was right. He reached into his cart, and that's when I saw it. The box, it was huge, and it had the distinctive, sleek design of the new 85-inch Ultra HD curved screen TV. Costco's pride and joy, the one we had on display near the entrance, under a spotlight, practically begging people to buy it. It was a beast, a beautiful, expensive beast. My mind raced. What was he doing? Was he going to make a joke? Was he going to try and return it? No. He held it up, not effortlessly, but with a determined grip. And he looked at Maria. Maria, he said, his voice gentle, I want to buy this for you. I swear you could have heard a pin drop in that entire section of the store. Even the background hum of the refrigerators seemed to quiet down. Maria's eyes, already wide from crying, got even wider. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She was in complete disbelief. And honestly, so was I. What? Maria finally managed to stammer out. No, sir, you can't. That's too much. Dave just smiled, a genuine, warm smile. Yes, I can, he said. Consider it a thank you for putting up with, well, you know. He gave a slight nod towards the exit where Karen had vanished. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. It was an acknowledgement of the emotional labor Maria had just endured. It was a recognition of her dignity. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no, this is where it gets truly unbelievable. Before Maria could protest further, before I could even process what was happening, Mrs. Henderson, the sweet older lady with the backbone of steel, stepped forward. She had a twinkle in her eye. Wait a minute, she said, her voice clear and firm. That's a bit much for one person, isn't it? My heart sank for a second. Was she going to tell him it was too extravagant? Was she going to ruin this beautiful moment? But then she pulled out her wallet and a thick wad of cash. How much is it? She asked Dave, her eyes fixed on the TV box. Dave, still smiling, told her the price. It was a number that made me wince, even though I knew it by heart. Mrs. Henderson didn't bat an eye. She counted out some bills, crisp hundreds and fifties, and handed them to Maria. Here, she said, her voice soft but resolute. This is for your share. And that was the spark, the catalyst. It was like a dam breaking, but this time it was a dam of generosity. One by one, people from the line started stepping forward. It wasn't organized. There was no leader, no one directing traffic. It was just spontaneous, organic. A young man, probably in his early 20s, with a cart full of protein powder and energy drinks, fumbled in his backpack and pulled out a crumpled $20 bill. Here, Maria, he mumbled, his cheeks a little red. You deserve it. A woman with two small children clinging to her legs, who had looked utterly exhausted just moments before, reached into her purse and pulled out a 50. Please, she said, her voice earnest, take it. Thank you for what you do. The harried dad, who had been trying to keep his kids from dismantling the display of giant gummy bears, managed to fish out a $100 bill from his wallet. Seriously, he said, his eyes meeting Maria's. You're a saint. Don't let people like that get to you. It was a cascade, a torrent of kindness. People were pulling out cash, credit cards, even offering to Venmo her. Maria was trying to protest, to say no, to say it was too much. but her voice was drowned out by the sheer volume of generosity. No, Maria, really, it's the least we can do. You earned it. Dave, the quiet instigator, just stood there, a wide, proud smile on his face. He was watching his act of kindness multiply, spread like wildfire through the line. It was a beautiful thing to witness, and I, Ben, the seasoned Costco veteran who thought he'd seen it all, was standing there with my jaw on the floor. I'd seen customers complain. I'd seen them argue. I'd even seen them get into shouting matches over parking spots, but I had never, in my 8 years, seen anything like this. This wasn't just about money. It was about validation. It was about a community, however temporary, coming together to say, we see you, we appreciate you, and we won't let anyone treat you like that. Within what felt like mere minutes, Maria had a stack of cash in her hands that was almost unbelievable. It was far more than the cost of the TV. It was enough to make a real difference in her life. She was crying again, but this time they were tears of pure joy and overwhelming gratitude. She looked at the money, then at the faces in the line, then back at the money. She was speechless. And then, in a moment that truly solidified her character, she looked at me. Her eyes, still wet with tears, held a new resolve. Ben, she said, her voice still a little shaky but firm. I can't take all of this. This is too much. We should donate some of it. I blinked. Even after all she'd been through, after being publicly humiliated and then showered with this incredible generosity, her first thought was to give back. That's Maria. That's the kind of person she is. We talked about it for a bit, Maria, Dave, Mrs. Henderson, and I, and we decided to take a significant portion of the money and donate it to the local food bank. We made sure it was in the name of the Costco Lane 7 heroes because that's exactly what they were. Maria did keep enough to buy that massive TV, of course, and a little extra. She deserved it, every single penny. She deserved it for every rude customer, every long shift, every time she put a smile on her face, even when she was exhausted. That day, I saw the absolute worst of humanity in that Karen. Her entitlement, her cruelty, her complete disregard for another person's feelings. But I also saw the absolute best, the courage of Dave to speak up, the solidarity of the line, the overwhelming generosity that flowed from complete strangers. It was a powerful reminder that even in the most mundane places, like a busy Costco checkout line, extraordinary things can happen. And that sometimes all it takes is one person to speak up to spark a chain reaction of kindness and generosity. It's a story I've told countless times since then, to new hires, to friends, to anyone who asks me what it's like to work at Costco. Because it's not just a story about a TV, it's a story about community. It's a story about standing up for what's right. And it's a story about how, even in a world that often feels divided and cynical, there's still so much good, so much empathy, so much willingness to help each other out. It makes me proud to work at Costco. It makes me proud to be a part of moments like that. And it makes me believe, truly believe, that kindness is contagious and that it can and often does win. What about you? Have you ever witnessed something like this? A moment where strangers came together to do something truly amazing? Maybe you've been the one to speak up, to defend someone who couldn't defend themselves. Or perhaps you've been on the receiving end of an unexpected act of kindness. Share your stories in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going, because these are the stories that remind us of the best parts of being human. And next time you're at Costco or any store, take a moment. Look at the people around you. Look at the staff. You never know when you might be part of an unforgettable moment or when you might be the one to start it. Stay kind out there, folks. It makes all the difference. It really does. You know, working at Costco, you see a lot of things. It's not just a job. It's a front row seat to the human condition. Every day is a new episode of a reality show, and you're right there in the thick of it. Sometimes it's mundane, sometimes it's hilarious, and sometimes, like that Tuesday, it's profoundly moving. I remember thinking as I watched Maria try to process what was happening, how often we as employees are just expected to take it, to absorb the anger, the frustration, the entitlement of a bad day that someone else is having. We're trained to de-escalate, to apologize, to make things right, even when we've done nothing wrong. And most of the time we do, we put on that customer service smile, we bite our tongues, and we move on to the next transaction, because that's the job. But it takes a toll. It chips away at you little by little. And for Maria, who was such a genuinely kind and giving person, I knew those moments of disrespect hurt her deeply. That's why Dave's intervention and then the collective outpouring from the line was so much more than just a nice gesture. It was a validation. It was a moment where the invisible labor of emotional resilience was finally seen, acknowledged, and appreciated. It was a loud, clear message that said, "You are not invisible. Your kindness matters, and we stand with you." I've often thought about what would have happened if Dave hadn't spoken up. Would Karen have continued her tirade? Would Maria have gone home that day feeling defeated, wondering why she even bothered? Probably. That's the power of one voice, one person willing to step out of their comfort zone, to challenge the status quo, to do the right thing even when it's uncomfortable. It's a lesson I try to carry with me every day. It's easy to be a bystander. It's harder to be an upstander, but the rewards, as I saw that day, are immeasurable. And the ripple effect, it's truly astonishing. Think about it. Dave's single act of courage didn't just save Maria from a humiliating experience. It inspired an entire line of strangers to open their hearts and their wallets. It created a moment of pure, unadulterated community in a place that's usually defined by individual transactions. It turned a mundane Tuesday afternoon into a legend, and it wasn't just Maria who was affected. I saw the faces of the people in line. They were beaming, they were proud, they were part of something bigger than themselves. They had witnessed and participated in a moment of true human connection. And I guarantee you, every single one of them walked out of that Costco that day feeling a little bit better about the world, feeling a little bit more hopeful, feeling like they had made a difference. That's the real magic of it all. It wasn't just about the TV or the money, it was about the feeling, the shared experience of collective kindness. And that's something you can't put a price on. I remember later that week, Maria came in for her next shift and she was glowing. She had that sparkle back in her eyes. She told me she'd bought the TV and it was even bigger and more beautiful than she'd imagined. But what she talked about most was the food bank donation. She said it felt even better than getting the TV. That's Maria, always thinking of others. And that's the kind of person who truly deserves all the good things that come their way. This story for me is a constant reminder. It reminds me that even on the toughest days, even when you're dealing with the most challenging customers, there's always the potential for something amazing to happen. There's always the potential for humanity to shine through. And it reminds me that my job as a Costco employee isn't just about moving products. It's about being a part of these moments. It's about witnessing the best of people. And sometimes it's about being the one who helps facilitate those moments. So the next time you're in a long line feeling impatient or you see someone being treated unfairly, remember Maria, remember Dave, remember the Costco Lane 7 heroes, and ask yourself, what kind of story do I want to be a part of today? Do I want to be the Karen spreading negativity and making everyone's day worse? Or do I want to be a Dave, an instigator of kindness, a catalyst for connection? The choice, my friends, is always yours. And trust me, the latter is always more rewarding. Always. It's funny, isn't it? How a simple trip to Costco can turn into a life lesson. How a mundane chore can become a profound experience. That's the beauty of working in customer service, I guess. You never know what each day will bring. But you can always choose how you react to it, and you can always choose to be the light, even in a busy, chaotic warehouse store. So, what are your thoughts on this? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt compelled to speak up for someone? Or perhaps you were the one who needed someone to speak up for you? How did it feel? Did it change your perspective on humanity? I'm genuinely curious to hear your experiences, because these stories, these moments of connection, are what truly make life worth living. They're the moments that remind us that we're all in this together, and that a little bit of kindness can go a very, very long way. So hit that comment section below and let me know. And until next time, stay kind, stay compassionate, and maybe, just maybe, look for those opportunities to be a hero in your own everyday life. Because you never know whose day you might just change, or whose life you might just touch. You know, sometimes people ask me, Ben, after 8 years at Costco, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen? And honestly, it's rarely the outlandish returns or the bizarre customer requests that stick with you. It's the human moments, the raw, unfiltered emotions that play out in the aisles and at the checkout. That day with Maria and Karen, it wasn't just a single incident. It was a culmination of so many little things that make working in customer service both incredibly challenging and incredibly rewarding. Think about it from Maria's perspective for a moment. She's standing there scanning items, making small talk, trying to keep the line moving. She's probably been on her feet for hours, dealing with a constant stream of people, each with their own demands and expectations. She's probably missed lunch or is thinking about the homework her daughter needs help with later. And then, out of nowhere, this wave of negativity just crashes over her. This person, this Karen, who sees her not as a human being, but as an obstacle, an inconvenience, someone to be belittled and dismissed. That kind of verbal assault, even if it's just words, can feel like a physical blow. It can chip away at your confidence, make you question your worth, make you wonder why you even bother. And Maria, being the kind and sensitive soul she is, would have felt that deeply. She would have carried that hurt with her long after Karen had stormed out. That's why Dave's intervention was so crucial. It wasn't just about stopping the immediate attack. It was about validating Maria's experience. It was about telling her without words that what she was enduring was wrong, that she deserved respect, that she was seen, and then the rest of the line. That's the part that still makes my eyes well up a little when I think about it. These were people who were, by all accounts, just as impatient as Karen. They were in a hurry. They had places to be. They were probably tired, hungry, stressed. But in that moment, they chose empathy over expediency. They chose solidarity over silence. They chose to stand up for a stranger simply because it was the right thing to do. It wasn't a planned protest. It wasn't a coordinated effort. It was a spontaneous eruption of decency, a collective refusal to let one person's negativity poison the atmosphere for everyone else. And the way they contributed to the TV, that was just the cherry on top of an already incredible Sunday of human kindness. It wasn't about the money for them. It was about the message. It was about saying, we appreciate you, we value you, and we want to show you in a tangible way how much your hard work means to us. And Maria's reaction to that generosity, her immediate thought to donate a portion of it to the food bank, that just cemented her status as a truly remarkable human being. It showed that even in the face of adversity, even when she was the recipient of such unexpected kindness, her heart remained open and generous. She wasn't thinking about herself. She was thinking about how she could pay it forward, how she could extend that chain of kindness to others who were less fortunate. That's the kind of person you hope to meet in life, the kind of person who inspires you to be better. This story, for me, isn't just a memory, it's a philosophy. It's a reminder that every interaction, no matter how small, has the potential to be meaningful. Every person you encounter, whether they're a customer, a colleague, or a complete stranger, has a story. And you have the power to influence that story, even if it's just for a fleeting moment. Are you going to be the person who adds to their burden, or are you going to be the person who lightens their load even just a little bit? It's a choice we make every single day. And that day at Costco, a whole line of people made the right choice. They chose compassion, they chose courage, they chose kindness. And in doing so, they created a moment that transcended the mundane and became truly unforgettable. It's a story that gives me hope. Hope for humanity, hope for the future. Because if a group of strangers in a busy Costco can come together like that, imagine what we could achieve if we all approached the world with that same spirit of empathy and generosity. So the next time you're feeling cynical or you're tempted to let a moment of injustice slide, remember Maria, remember Dave, remember the Costco Lane 7 heroes. And ask yourself, what can I do today to make a difference? What small act of kindness can I perform? What voice can I lend to someone who needs it? Because those small acts, those quiet moments of courage, are what truly change the world. One checkout line at a time, one person at a time. It's a powerful thought, isn't it? And it's a thought that keeps me going even on the toughest days at Costco, knowing that moments like these are possible, knowing that there's so much good in the world just waiting to be unleashed. So, what's your take on this? Have you ever been part of a spontaneous act of collective kindness? Or perhaps you've been the recipient of such an act? How did it impact you? Did it change your outlook on life, even for a little while? I'd love to hear your stories, because sharing these moments, these glimpses of humanity at its best, is how we keep the flame of hope alive. It's how we remind ourselves that even in a world that often feels chaotic and divisive, there's always room for connection, for empathy, for genuine human goodness. So, don't be shy. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's build a community of kindness, one story at a time. And remember, the next time you're out and about, look for those opportunities to be a hero, because you never know when your small act of courage might spark something truly extraordinary, something unforgettable, something that reminds us all of the best of who we are. It's funny, isn't it, how a single moment can reshape your entire perspective. Before that day, I saw my job at Costco as just that, a job, a way to pay the bills, a place to interact with people, sure, but fundamentally a transaction. Scan items, take money, direct traffic. But after Maria's incident, after witnessing that incredible outpouring of human decency, something shifted inside me. I started looking at the lines differently, not just as queues of impatient shoppers, but as temporary communities. Each person in that line, with their own stories, their own struggles, their own reasons for being there. And the cashiers, they weren't just scanning items, they were the frontline ambassadors of that community, often bearing the brunt of its frustrations, but also, as I saw, capable of inspiring its greatest acts of kindness. I started paying more attention to the subtle cues. The tired slump of a shoulder, the forced smile, the flicker of frustration in someone's eyes. And I also started noticing the small acts of kindness that happen every day, often unnoticed. The customer who patiently helps an elderly person load their cart. The parent who calms their crying child with a gentle word. The quick, understanding glance between two strangers in a long line. These moments, they're everywhere if you just open your eyes to them. That day, the atmosphere in Lane 7, and indeed throughout that section of the store, changed dramatically. After Karen left And after the collective generosity, there was a lightness, an almost palpable sense of relief and camaraderie. People who had been strangers just minutes before were now chatting, smiling, sharing a common bond. It was like a little pocket of utopia had formed in the middle of a bustling warehouse. And it lasted. For the rest of the afternoon, that lane, Lane 7, became known unofficially as the kindness lane. Customers would actually try to get into Maria's line, even if it was longer, just to say hello, to offer a word of encouragement, or simply to be in the presence of someone who had been so visibly supported. It was a beautiful thing to witness. And it wasn't just Maria who benefited. Other cashiers who had heard the story or seen the aftermath started feeling a renewed sense of appreciation for their work. They saw that their efforts, their patience, their emotional labor were not always invisible, that there were people out there who saw them, who valued them, and who were willing to stand up for them. It created a ripple effect of positivity throughout our entire front-end team. We even started a little internal recognition program informally where we'd share stories of customers going above and beyond for our staff, or staff going above and beyond for customers. It was a direct result of that day, because that incident, as ugly as it started, ultimately became a powerful reminder of the good that exists in people. It taught us that while there will always be Karens in the world, there are far more Daves and Mrs. Hendersons and young couples and harried dads. There are far more people who choose empathy over anger, who choose connection over conflict. And that's a lesson worth remembering, not just in a Costco, but everywhere. It's a lesson that gives me hope for the world. It's a lesson that makes me proud to wear this red vest. And it's a lesson I hope you'll carry with you too, because every single one of us has the power to be a Dave. Every single one of us has the power to turn a negative moment into a positive one, to stand up for someone, to offer a kind word, to make a difference, however small. And you never know, that small act might just spark something truly extraordinary, something unforgettable, something that changes someone's day or even their life. So, what's your biggest takeaway from this story? Does it make you think differently about your everyday interactions? Have you ever been inspired by a random act of kindness, either as a giver or a receiver? Let me know in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation about kindness and community going, because these are the stories that truly matter. These are the moments that remind us of the best of who we are. And they're the moments that make the world a little brighter, one Costco checkout line at a time. You know, it's funny how some days just stick with you, like a particularly stubborn piece of lint on a brand new sweater. That Tuesday, it wasn't just a day, it was a marker, a before and after in my 8 years at Costco. Before it was a job, after it was something more. I've been asked if Maria ever got tired of people bringing it up, if she ever wished that day had just faded into the background of countless other busy shifts. And honestly, I think for a little while she might have, because every time someone mentioned it, every time a customer in her line would say, "Hey, aren't you the one from the TV story?" she'd get a little shy. She's a humble person, Maria. She doesn't seek the spotlight. But then I'd see her eyes light up when someone genuinely thanked her, not just for scanning their items, but for being her, for being the kind, resilient person she is. And I knew deep down that the good outweighed any fleeting discomfort. That day, it wasn't just about a TV, it was about a community's collective embrace. It was about showing someone unequivocally that they are valued, and that's a feeling that lasts a lifetime. I've often thought about Karen too, not with anger anymore, but with a strange sort of pity. What kind of life must she lead to be so filled with anger and entitlement? What kind of emptiness must she feel that she needs to tear others down to feel important. I hope in some small way that day was a wake-up call for her, that seeing the collective disapproval, the unified front of kindness, made her pause, made her reflect. Though knowing Karen's probably not, but one can hope, right? One can always hope for a little bit of growth, even in the most hardened hearts. And Dave, the quiet hero. He continued to be a regular at our Costco. He'd always make a point to say hello to Maria and to me. He never brought up the incident again, not directly, but there was an unspoken understanding between us, a shared memory of a moment when ordinary people did something extraordinary. He was just a regular guy buying camping gear, but in that moment, he became a beacon, a reminder that heroism isn't always about grand gestures or capes. Sometimes it's just about speaking up, about being brave enough to be kind. And that's a lesson I try to impart to every new hire I train. I tell them, look, you're gonna have tough days. You're gonna deal with people who try your patience. But remember Maria, remember Dave, remember the line. Because for every difficult person, there are 10, 20, 100 good ones. And those are the ones you work for. Those are the ones who make it all worthwhile. It's not just a job, it's a community. And we're all in it together, from the person pushing the cart to the person scanning the items to the person sweeping the floors. Every single one of us plays a part in creating the atmosphere, the experience. And that day, we created something truly special, something that resonated far beyond the walls of our warehouse. It became a story, a legend even. And that, I think, is the true power of kindness. It's not just an act, it's a legacy. It's something that can inspire, that can uplift, that can remind us all of the inherent goodness that still exists in the world. So as you go about your day, whether you're at work, at the grocery store, or just out and about, remember this story. Remember the power of your voice. Remember the impact of your actions. And remember that you have the ability to choose kindness, to choose empathy, to choose to be a part of the solution, not the problem. Because those choices, however small they may seem, are what truly shape our world. They're what create the unforgettable moments. They're what make life worth living. And they're what make me proud to be Ben from Costco. Still here, still seeing it all, and still believing in the good. What's a moment that changed your perspective on humanity? Was it a grand gesture or a quiet act of kindness? Share your stories below, and let's continue to build this tapestry of human connection, because every story shared is another light in the world, and we could all use a little more light, couldn't we?